Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is really well, and I hope your week is off to a great start. So many of you know there was issues with last week's group call. It was deleted. So here we are with the re-recording, and it wasn't deleted by me, but it can't be retrieved, unfortunately. So here we go with the re-recording, and hopefully this one is just as good as last week's one was, because last week's was really good. I know many of you caught it live, but some of you didn't, and it's always good to have the information again. I'm using Zoom this time so I can screen share with you guys, but that also means I can't use my microphone. So hopefully this is clear enough. Zoom and my microphone don't work together for some reason. So last week, for those of you that weren't on or don't remember, last week we had a couple of things to cover. We went into bone broth, collagen, apples, berries. And then at the end, I went through the hormonal stress pathway and how stress can affect weight gain. So we're going to go through it all again. So starting at the start, and honestly, it is unfortunate that the video got recorded, so hopefully I can do this justice. So last week we started with bone broth because in week 2 of the Master's Guide, which was last week, the new members were starting to introduce bone broth into their diet. And a lot of kind of hemming and hawing and questions around that. So we're looking at that now. So bone broth, the first thing I suppose I want to really clarify about bone broth is there's 2 forms you can get with bone broth. And this is what I want to start with, just to kind of give you this understanding first. You can either get bone broth in a powder form or you can get it in liquid form. So the powder form, we've sent around a couple of different pictures on what I recommend, what are good, what even taste good. So the powdered bone broth is more what we would consider a protein, because in order to make it powdered, you have to pretty much dehydrate it, and part of that process pulls out fat. So it's more of a protein, which is awesome because you get all the amino acids and you still do get the collagen and some elastin. But for those people that really struggle to get their protein up or hit protein targets, which is a lot of people, like it can be pretty hard. And not just because cost nowadays, the satiety factor, protein is the most satiating macronutrient out there. I didn't mean to say out there, but in general, protein is the most satiating macro. So eating more can be hard for people, but also they forget. So adding in bone broth, especially in the powdered form, can be helpful in helping people get their protein up, which is important for so many things. We'll get into that in a minute. So that's the powder, just to clarify. Now, because you pull out a lot of the fat, you are pulling out a lot of the nutrients, because a lot of these nutrients found in bone broth are fat soluble, but you still are getting some of them because it's not completely void of fat, but you still are getting, like I said, the essential amino acids. You will still get some minerals and nutrients, and you'll still get, of course, the collagen and some of the elastin as well. And you'll get the anti-inflammatory medicinal benefits too. But when you look at the liquid bone broth is more of a fat. It's liquid, and many of you who've made it, you can almost see the fat globules floating on the top. Or when you get the tubs of bone broth, they're pretty much like jelly. So the tubs, like the Bone Brew House tub, and there's another one, and even the bags of bone broth, they're like jelly. So that's that fat content. That's that gelatinous, gelatin, collagenous, collagen, elastin aspect. So that then is going to be a little lower in protein, but higher in other nutrients, because it has that fat content, and a lot of our essential nutrients like our vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin D, they are fat soluble. So, and even vitamin K, which is really important, especially if you have a lot of stress in your life, particularly K2. So those are fat soluble. So that's the difference between both of them. Now, bone broth is what we would consider part of our fairy dust. It is a way for us to get in very dense nutrition into our diet easily. Most people don't like the taste of bone broth. It's not great. I'm not a big fan of it. But the ones I've found, like they're tolerable, like the Bone Brew House, they have some great flavors now. I found that if you drink it while it's hot before it starts going jelly or the texture starts to change, it's a lot easier to take. So I'll drink it as fast as I can while it's hot. So it is considered our fairy dust. Your average cup of bone broth is about 50 calories. So not a lot of calories, but very dense in nutrition and doesn't generally cause a big insulin response. So you can pretty much have bone broth at any time of the day, at any meal. You can have it if you're doing a bone broth fast or a dirty fast, or if you needed an extra snack. It can be very helpful in the winter as you kind of crave more warming stuff, but also maybe you're still trying to lose weight in the winter and you don't want too many calories, but you want the nutrition. So it can be a great tool. You can use it as a base to soups, stews, chili, pretty much anything you want. Bone broth is quite versatile. Even if you had the powder, and let's say you're making a shepherd's pie or something, you could just add in the powder for flavoring, like the Bone Brew House when they have a mushroom one. So like that would be something you could use, or the plain beef flavored. Like it's pretty versatile. So bone broth, I suppose what in summary, I would say, look, it doesn't taste great. Don't have high expectations from it. There are different ways you can take it. I don't really recommend those bone broths that are in cartons. I think Pacific makes a brand, even if it says organic. It's going to be better than nothing, but I don't really recommend them. They're specific ones. Or you can make your own. A lot of people do make their own bone broth. It's not too hard. Just be sure that you're adding some apple cider vinegar into your crock pot or your Instant Pot. But because the apple cider vinegar helps you extract more of the nutrients out of the bones and break down the marrow a little bit better. In the file section, there's a couple of recipes for making your own bone broth. And even if you just search bone broth in the search bar, you will see it there. So if that's something you want to do, it's not too hard. It's just the whole time consuming and doing it aspect of it. But there's many options. But bone broth it's almost supplemental. It almost is a supplement to your diet to make sure that you are getting those essential healing medicinal nutrients that you may be missing from the rest of your diet. So bone broth, very, very, very healing to the gut. For many reasons, it's pre-digested because it's a liquid. It has the nutrients. It has the bioavailable collagen, including the glycine, which is very important for healing the gastrointestinal tract. It'll have some elastin in it. It has all of the essential amino acids, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, but specifically glycine is the important one. We'll get into that more when we get to the collagen aspect. Bone broth, very nutritious on so many levels, like everything you can think of. Bone broth is going to be beneficial from your gut to your skin, to your brain health, to your immune system, to building muscle, to everything. Like bone broth is a great tool. So as much as it might not taste great, and you can add stuff into it, you could add some Worcestershire sauce, you could add Tabasco. So if you're just making a cup of it, you could add, I know one of the girls likes to add sea salt and lime and cilantro, kind of give it that Mexican flair. Some people find that just adding sea salt to bone broth makes a big difference. If I'm having bison and beef, I've found that adding black pepper can really help. So you can pretty much add whatever you want to it to make the taste a bit better. Oh, you can use it as a base for pho as well. There's a pho recipe in the form too. I know someone has dropped an egg into theirs before, so like egg drop soup, that just is not for me. But if it's for you, maybe you could do that. So bone broth, a very valuable tool with a lot of benefits, and really part of our journey together is not only optimizing your metabolism and helping with the fat loss, but really optimizing your healing potential, your youthfulness, your vitality, upregulating stem cells, helping with immunity, helping with hormones, energy, like the whole lot. And everything I recommend, as you'll see as we go through this video, is for a reason. So I'm not just saying, oh, I heard bone broth was good because every gut health guru out there recommends it. No, like when you actually break it down into its different nutrient profiles and molecular makeup, like it is. And bone broth is low in deuterium. Deuterium is a whole other rabbit hole, which I was speaking to Tammy about last week. I was laughing and I was like, oh, you want to go down the rabbit hole? Like this rabbit hole is very, very deep. So we were talking about deuterium, and I'm going to have a podcast out on it soon. I already have an article on my website, shemainesmodelhealth.com, on deuterium, lots of posts on it in the biohacking group. I'm hoping to get some of the leading specialists in the world on deuterium on the podcast for a chat. But bone broth is low in deuterium, which is great. The more lower deuterium foods we can have in our body, the better, but also the more low deuterium foods that also support detoxification and metabolism in our body, that's even better, because that's going to influence our ability to detoxify deuterium, because we want low deuterium. Anyway, whole other conversation. But this rabbit hole, like, is so deep. There's a lot of stuff I don't say to people, or I might kind of skim on the surface or allude to certain things like ceramide, deuterium, even molecular hydrogen. These start to go a bit more in depth with health and where the science is. But most people don't want to know that, or they can't understand it. It's too overwhelming. Or they're like, look, just give me the kind of basics and I'll trust you, kind of thing. So some people will ask to go into depth, and I will go in depth with them. And some people, they just don't want it, which is fine, because I still find it super interesting. So I'm still going to be researching a lot of it. And anyway, so, okay, that's our bone broth. And by the time we get to the end of the collagen, it's going to all loop around and connect back to bone broth. So next up, I wanted to discuss apples, because I'm obviously a huge proponent of apples, so much so that I think people almost eye roll when I recommend apples or dark chocolate or like certain things. Like, people ask me questions and I'm pretty sure they already know the answer. And I'm repetitive with a lot of stuff, because that's how you have to be. You see, people forget stuff all the time. Like, unless it's your job, you don't remember stuff. You can't regurgitate it or understand it the way I can, because this is what I do. You're probably great at your job. I'm great at my job, I hope. But a lot of stuff people forget. And if I can wash, rinse, repeat enough that you have this solid foundation that you just know, you're sorted for life, as long as you do it, obviously. So a lot of stuff is repetitive. But I want you to understand why. And before I go on, as we move into the seasons, and I do a lot of seasonal posts, seasonal produce on my Instagram page, please follow me. That would be great. Instagram and me don't have a great relationship. It's like a hate relationship, but I do it because part of my job is just helping, just want to teach people. So I just put the information out. But every month I'll do this produce is in season this month. And maybe I'll do a podcast on why it's so important. And part of that does go back to deuterium as well, like really, really important. And as we move into the summer months, then I'm going to be kind of introducing you or allowing you to have more fruits for specific reasons. And every fruit is being vetted, like mango. Okay, the research shows us that mango can be very good for its anti-angiogenic effects, kiwi, anti-cancer, and bowel health. Like, everything has been studied. It's not like I'm just like, let's give her this, and this. No, like, if I'm strict on something, it's because I very much believe this is the correct path based on the research that I have came across. And Yeah, so apples. So everyone knows I'm a huge proponent of apples, especially organic Granny Smith apples. Literally, an apple a day does keep the doctor away. Like it does, the end. And the dentist and even I would go far as to say the gynecologist and the ophthalmologist and everyone. So an apple a day. And an apple, like it's I don't want to say they're cost effective because of inflation, but they're kind of cost effective. They're easy to transport. They already kind of come in their own packaging. You throw it in your bag, throw it in your car. Apples, very high, of course, in fiber, pectin, super important for the gut and the microbiota, who then eat that fiber and pectin, so the insoluble fiber. And then from there, they make butyrate, and butyrate pretty much then is like a byproduct that kind of acts like cement in your gut. So if you have leaky gut, the butyrate kind of goes in and heals up everything. So I remember on last week's call, I remember doing this, that if this is your gut, in your gut, along the whole gut lining, you have what's called tight gut junctions. So the gut is held together at junctions and it's really tight. But as the more inflammation you have and exposure to toxins in the environment and stress even can cause these junctions to open. And when these junctions open, now you have molecules and proteins start to enter into the bloodstream, and this is where we see increases in autoimmune issues. Butyrate can help to kind of cement up these holes, and just tighten it up and help with leaky gut. So straight away, that's super important. Apples, very hydrating, very high in structured water. Structured water is more bioavailable and efficacious to the cells. Last week, I did an interview with Analima's CEO, Mario Branovic. Go check it out. We discuss a lot about structured and coherent water. So good. But apples are very high in structured water. They're one of the most hydrating foods on the planet. So obviously amazing for us now going into the hot weather. Apples very high in enzymes. A lot of people have enzyme deficiencies, or their body doesn't produce enough enzymes. That could be stress, could be a poor diet, could be inherited. But regardless, apples very high in enzymes. Now, apples as well are acidic, which is great because when we have apples, we do get that kind of vagal nerve activation. And that's going to help with our digestive processes. It's going to stimulate the body and say, hey, we're stimulating the vagus nerve, time to make stomach acid, bile, enzymes. Let's get this whole process going. Now, part of why I like organic Granny Smith apples the most is one, they're the most tart apple you can get. Well, I'm sure there's other ones, but I haven't came across them. But anyway, they're pretty tart. So that tartness, that sourness is so important for that vagal nerve activation. So many people have issues with the vagus nerve. That could be from concussion, trauma, stress. It could be eating too fast, and this will be reflective in acid reflux, SIBO, bowel issues, constipation, even diarrhea, even cognitive performance issues. So the vagus nerve is very, very important. This is why the apple cider vinegar pills and gummies, complete waste of money. So when you taste this tartness and sourness, that's going to stimulate the whole vagus nerve. But that doesn't just have a ripple effect into your digestive system and the stomach acids and everything. It's systemic. It goes right through your whole body. So Granny Smith apples, great for that. But Granny Smith apples as well, they're lower on the glycemic index. So they have less sugar and more water than the other apples. Awesome. They have amazing anti-inflammatory properties. And then also, this is one thing I really want to drive home, because I really feel if this doesn't convince you to crunch and chew and bite on Granny Smith apples regularly, I don't know what's going to convince you. So there's so many benefits to apples. I did a whole podcast on apples. I can't remember what it's called, the benefits of apples or something like that. It's in my podcast. It was really good. I went right in depth, which I'm kind of just going through it now, but not as in depth. So if you want to kind of go really deep on why apples are so good, check out that podcast. And I've posted studies in the biohacking group and apple this, apple that. Anyway, so Granny Smith apples, they're also generally the hardest of the apples. Their skin is thicker, so you have to really bite and crunch and chew harder. So crunching and chewing and biting, some of the benefits of this and benefits of these types of apples is it helps maintain your facial structure. It also helps reduce the appearance. I don't want to say appearance. It helps pretty much reduce wrinkles. Like it slows down when you get them, and even in some cases it can reverse them. That's not just like the clean structured water. Apples, now that I think of it, would be slightly lower in deuterium than other apples. There's the antioxidants. Apples have vitamin C, which most people only think of oranges. Apples do have a lot of vitamin C. Then you've got the pectin, the fibers. But apples, because they're so crunchy, Granny Smith apples, and chewy, what they're doing is helping maintain your facial structure. As you get older, the face starts to fall in on itself. So a lot of your face, as you know, is made up of bones, but you also have a lot of muscle in your face. And when these muscles here start to atrophy, or they start to decline or regress, then your face starts to fall. Everything starts to fall, and the face starts to collapse in on itself. Now, it's not like a huge structural collapse that one day it's there, one day it's not, but it slowly starts to fall in on itself, starts to squash your airways, starts to make those tunnels smaller, increases inflammation. And one of the way apples can really help with this is because that chewing is like an exercise, and it really exercises these cranial muscles and these jaw muscles and keeps everything tight and strong and keeps the face pulled tight rather than everything drooping. So not only have you got the antioxidants for the wrinkles and the hydration and the vitamin C and the collagen in your bone broth, but now you're also keeping your muscles, your facial muscles exercised, which keeps everything strong and tight and keeps these muscles specifically pulling everything back and keeping it strong. One of the best ways as well to keep your bones strong is by putting load on the bones. So when you're chewing, you're keeping these bones strong too. And a lot of people don't know that there really is only 3 reasons for sleep apnea. And most people get sleep apnea as they get older, unless they're very overweight younger. So 3 reasons. I've already alluded to one. It's being overweight, and that would go hand in hand with insulin resistance. Then the other one is inflammation. I suppose that could go hand in hand with being overweight as well, but inflammation will tighten up the airways, and then it can also cause excess mucus, and you can get damaged proteins build up all along the sinuses. Of course, like inflammation is going to make those tunnels very, very tight. So a lot of congestion there. And then the other one is that the airways just collapse in on themselves because of age, because of how you eat. Because I mean, I've always said this, so this is not new members, this is new to you, but I am not a huge proponent of the smoothie diets, juice cleanses, liquid dinners. I've always said, if you're gonna do anything like that, I need you adding something crunchy or chewy with it as well, because apart from aging, but the way we live, the way we eat nowadays, we're not chewing and crunching and biting and keeping these muscles and bones activated enough. So then the facial structure just falls in. So it's not just age, it is our lifestyle. So chewing, crunching, so important. Lots and lots of chewing. Chew your steak, chew your nuts, chew your seeds. Like lots of chewing and crunching, really, really important. And that could be more beneficial than a nutritious smoothie. Like it's very individual, but the chewing and crunching process alone very much activates the digestive system and is very important there. So that's kind of why I'm so such a big proponent of organic Granny Smith apples, which I'll just touch on organic for a minute here because we're going to be looking at organic berries next. Organic, I'm well aware of the cost and inflation prices nowadays. It affects me too. It affects everyone. Not everything needs to be organic, but there's some things that I'm very adamant these need to be organic because I know the benefits I want to get from them. And I know the problems that are going to occur if they're not organic. Of course, if you can financially afford to do everything organic and grass-fed, go for it. But not everyone can. So a couple of things that really do need to be organic is your apples. Because when you spray herbicides, pesticides, whatever it is on apples, most of it gets stored in the skin and you cannot wash off pesticides. Like that's just ridiculous. You can't, it's in the skin. So because we want the skin to really help with that fiber and pectin and a lot of the antioxidants are in the skin, we want that to go into our gut. Now, not only do herbicides and pesticides impair the nutrient profile, and the research shows us that it even impairs the antioxidant profile, but herbicides and pesticides are designed to kill bacteria and pathogens. We want that fiber, the apple peel, to go into our gut to support our microbiome. It is a modbiotic. It helps balance out or modulate our gut, modbiotic. So if it's designed to kill bacteria and pathogens, what do you think it's going to do in your microbiome if you ingest pesticides? And like I said, you cannot wash them off. So that organic is important for a couple of things. So for me, I'm like organic apples for sure, organic berries. They're so delicate and petite. They need to be organic. I'll be going into berries now in a second. Organic tea and coffee, very, very important. And then organic green vegetables, like those would be my top. But in the biohacking, like those would be non-negotiable. Like those apples, berries, green vegetables, tea, coffee, like those would be the tops. In the biohacking group, I have updated the list of like the clean 15 and dirty 15 from the EWG and World Health Organization. They change it every year, so a few things removed and a few have been implemented. You can check that out. But for me, like those non-negotiables are there. Okay, so moving on to berries. Now you kind of understand the apples. Go check out the podcast. There is even a podcast on bone broth, I think. There's 2 awesome podcast episodes on protein. Most people do not understand how important protein is. They just think growth, muscle building. But it's so much more, right, to your mental health, to producing stomach acid. With protein, so important. But berries. Now we come to berries. I'm obviously a huge proponent of organic blueberries. I speak about them a lot, and raspberries and strawberries. Like berries are awesome. Goji berries, although they're hard to get fresh, but sometimes, depending on the season, community foods will have them. Saskatoon berries, blackberries, like berries are awesome. Gooseberries, I used to love gooseberries. Easy to get in Ireland, but since I've been to Canada, I can't find gooseberries, but they're so tart and sour and so good for you. And they're so good for you because of that tart, sour bitterness. So blueberries have so many benefits, like so many. You talk about brain health, eye health, anti-cancer, anti-angiogenic, helps with blood clotting, anti-inflammatory, great for your hair, skin, and nails, anti-aging. Blueberries, everything, help with fertility, help with muscle growth, help with hormones. Like blueberries are amazing. All berries are, but I'm just specifically talking about blueberries right now, but this is relevant to all berries. So berries in general, they're sirtuin foods. So many of you know about our sirtuin foods being gene activators. We'll get into that in a second. Blueberries, very high in polyphenols. Blueberries are also a modbiotic food. So like I just said with the apples, Modbiotic means it helps to modulate bacteria. So if you too much bad stuff, it helps push them down. If you too much low stuff, it pushes them up. Modbiotics basically feed your good bacteria. Bad bacteria hate modbiotics. Bad bacteria love sugar and trans fats and alcohol and the shit that most of us love but shouldn't be eating, hence why so many people have gut and health issues. Anyway, good bacteria, they love everything that's bitter, tart, sour, astringent, and your berries fall into that category, especially if you can get the blueberries where they still have a slight green tint to them. They should be extra sour. I had actually a green blueberry. It was completely green the other day, so it hadn't completely fruited, and that was super tart and harder as well because it hadn't filled with water and sugar. The blueberries are low in the glycemic index. So blueberries, you know, when you look at a blueberry and it has kind of like a white powder or a cloudy coating on it, well, a lot of that is the good stuff. That's where you get that astringency, like when you drink a very astringent green tea, and that means your mouth starts to feel really dry, and some people really can't tolerate that, and that is the taste buds, and they will completely change. But this powder, a lot of people will wash that off. And if you can avoid completely washing that off, you want to ingest that. There's not only is that a big proponent of that kind of microbiome of the blueberry in itself, because everything has its own microbiome. So you get a lot of good bacteria, but part of that is the polyphenols as well. So blueberries have so many benefits that, like, I can't encourage it a lot. And berries in general, they're what's called non-insulinogenic foods. This is where people get confused, because I'll say, well, you can have a couple of berries in breakfast just to kind of liven it up. So non-insulinogenic means that in a small amount, you're not going to get an insulin response. That's that any tiny, teeny bit of sugar that would be in that small amount of berries is just going to stay in your liver. It's not going to cause an insulin response. It's non-insulinogenic. Now, this is just like a couple, tablespoon, a handful, not a quarter cup like I've seen people do, or a half cup. You do that at lunch. But in the morning, you can have like a couple of cut up strawberries or a couple of blueberries or raspberries just to liven things up. Even pomegranates would fall into this category. Cherries, not so much though. I always get this question. Cherries are higher on that glycemic list. They are higher in sugar. So that would be your lunch thing. But cherries still very high in vitamin C and your polyphenols. So they're still great, but not something you would have for breakfast. But all berries are amazing. They're lower in that insulin response. They're very high in polyphenols. There are sirtuin foods. And also there was something else I was going to say, and it has slipped my mind. Well, let's look at the sirtuins for a second. So blueberries, strawberries on that sirtuin list. I've given you the top 20 sirtuin foods, which would be the most popular. Blueberries, strawberries, olives, endives, extra virgin olive oil, vinegar, red wine, anchovies. Like, there's a whole list. These foods are sirtuin activators. And what that basically means is sirtuins are proteins on your genes. And the simplest way to describe it is like this. If you think of these proteins on your genes, on each specific gene, and there's like 7 sirtuins. I can never remember them off by heart. But anyway, they're like light switches. So for your cancer gene, you may have the light switch turned on, like, hey, she's predisposed for cancer. She may eventually get cancer. But if you take in these sirtuin activators or sirtuin foods, they can turn that light switch off. Amongst doing other things that can be anti-cancer beneficial, they can turn them off. You also have your skinny genes, or they're called your skinny genes, and I believe it's sirtuin 1 and 3. And that basically is like that light switch. So for naturally slim people, that switch might always be turned on. You're slim, you're a naturally slim person. Whereas someone who's overweight, that switch might be off. But while on our weight loss journey, if we bring in these sirtuin rich foods, we can turn that light switch on and be like, you're a skinny person, you're a skinny person, you're a skinny person. This is me just talking very layman's. And that can then help with the prevention of weight regain and support weight loss maintenance and the long term, and really even upregulate weight loss as it is. These foods are so important. It's not like, oh, I heard blueberries are good, just eat them. There's so much to these foods. Like if you want to look good, you want to perform good, you want your brain to be formed good, you can find the research on blueberries and brain health. You want your hormones to be good. Like these foods are so important. Again, it's not just because I read somewhere they're good and I think you should do it. Because you see, there's a lot of foods I disagree with that the general consensus would say, yeah, that's good. And I'm like, no, that's not actually good, or that's not how you do it. So berries just everywhere. Now we're going into summer. We get fresher, more localized fruit and berries, which is awesome. We're going to get all those enzymes. It's a good time to be alive, as they say, summer. So that's berries. Next up, I want to talk about collagen. So collagen kind of loops back to the bone broth. Let me just check, I'm on track with everything. So collagen loops back around to bone broth, and pretty much bone broth is made up of collagen. Collagen is in bone broth. Collagen is in everything. I'll get asked a lot, is collagen safe for pregnancy, or is collagen safe for kids? And of course, I can be a bit of a smart arse and I'll tell someone, well, yeah, if it wasn't, you wouldn't be able to eat any animal products or meat when you're pregnant or a kid, because there's collagen in them. People ask me if vitamin C is okay for kids or pregnancy. And yeah, if it wasn't, you wouldn't be able to eat fruit and green vegetables. So, I mean, I know not everyone kind of thinks of it like that, but that is how it is. So berries and collagen. Okay. So collagen is in bone broth. Really, the questions this week with the new members is how much collagen is good. I personally take between 4 and 6 scoops of collagen a day. It really depends on your goals. But from what the research shows us, I think we're looking at a minimum of 4 scoops a day to really reap the rewards there. So I recommend hydrolyzed collagen peptide. Unlike, I'm going to say this, but I don't mean to sound like an ass or a know-it-all, but I see all these comments on Facebook in different moms groups, and collagen this and collagen, and this doesn't work, and I use this and this, this and this. No, okay? In order for collagen to be efficacious, it needs to be in hydrolyzed collagen peptide form. When it's in peptide form, maybe many of you have heard of different peptides that people use for healing and regeneration, recovery from sports injuries, surgeries, whatever. Peptides, basically, they're almost like enzymes. When they're in that form, they have the coding to go directly into where they are needed. And if you're taking care of your body and it's all working smoothly, your body knows, like, hey, I need this collagen because she cut her face the other day, so we need to put that there. Like, your body knows what to do with it, but only if it's in a bioavailable form. That's why it needs to be hydrolyzed collagen peptides. When it's in hydrolyzed collagen peptide form, at that stage, it doesn't matter if it's organic or grass-fed or anything. Like, that's irrelevant. All of that stuff is being removed. You just have the peptides. Type 1, type 2, type 3, irrelevant. You just have the peptides at that stage. And provided you take care of your body will know how to utilize them properly. If you don't take care of your body and you eat crap all the time, you have a terrible lifestyle, I'd almost say that your body's in such a kind of stress survival state that you take in collagen, it uses a bit of protein and it poops the rest out, because your body's, to put it in Wonderland terms, it's just topsy-turvy. There's just too much noise. There's just too much going on. The body really is like white noise, doesn't know if it's going left or right or what to do. But back to that. So hydrolyzed collagen peptide forms. I like Organica, as many people know. I like Vital Proteins, which is good. I think Ancient Nutrition do a good one. can't remember who else does a good one. I mean, but there's some 3 good options. Hydrolyzed collagen peptides, not pills, not liquids, not gummies. Hydrolyzed collagen peptides in powder form. This way you can also utilize it a little bit better, because when it's in powder form, it can easily be added to your tea and coffee, as you know, but also soup, stew, shakes, smoothies. Some people add it to their yogurts, their pudding, baking. I always add collagen to, like, if I'm making pancakes or waffles or anything, because I want to upregulate not just the amount of protein, but I want to make sure my kids are getting this good nutrition. So collagen, really important. And it does depend on your goals and what you want. And again, it can be expensive, but if you get it in Costco and they have their sale, you can get that big tub for $40. That can last months. Even with me using 4 or more scoops a day, I still will get months out of that big tub. So collagen, a lot of what I've seen a lot of actually is people say, oh no, collagen doesn't go into your skin. It doesn't help with that. Really? Well, my skin's pretty good for my age. And yes, it does. The research shows us it does. The trials shows it does. Collagen does directly go to the skin, dermis, and even to the ligaments, the joints, the bone, the organ tissues. Collagen goes everywhere. It goes where it's needed, basically. All the nutrients do. That goes back to the triage effect that I spoke about in one of my videos. It's on YouTube. So the body will use it for sure. It is very effective for the skin. I also did an interview with Amite Eshel, who is the CEO of Young Goose, biohacking skincare company. And we discussed a lot about skin health and even touched on collagen. Collagen is very efficacious, but again, you have to be taking care of your body as well. If you have a lot of inflammation, if you have a lot of free radicals, if you have a lot of glycated end products, a lot of oxidation going into your body, it's unlikely the collagen is going to be able to keep up with all of that madness. So everything in context, but collagen is amazing. So there was a big study came out in March, just gone. Let me see. I want to share this. Nearly knocked myself off, pressed the wrong button. So let me see. There was a big study that came out in March 2023. It's actually doing its rounds in the health industry now. A lot of talk about the benefits of glycine and its abilities to extend lifespan in animals and mitigate chronic disease and disability, longevity. So glycine is in, let me see, can I share the screen? Glycine is what's in our collagen. And glycine is the main, pretty much, I mean, there's others if we want to get into it, but it's the main reason that I recommend where is it? It's the main reason that I recommend we have collagen in our evening tea, because glycine lowers your core temperature, and you need to have a low core temperature to get into deep sleep, but it also further pushes us into deep sleep. Combine that with your Tulsi and ginger. So collagen is very high in glycine. So that's why I recommend it in the evening tea. But as you see here, glycine has anti-cancer effects. And look, you can supplement with just glycine, but most people are not going to do that. Like your average person's not. It's going to take like an extremist like me or someone that's very into health and biohacking to go the extra mile with a lot of this stuff. But the easy way, the low-hanging fruit way that most people can do it is with collagen. And collagen, it is quite high in glycine. Like there's a nice amount there. So glycine has anti-cancer effect, reduces insulin, and alleviates neuroinflammation. I think it was either a video or a podcast I did a couple of weeks ago on neuroinflammation. Go check it out. So important. I've spoken about how I get neuroinflammation a lot, especially if I've had a bad night's sleep. Basically, neuroinflammation, basically like a bomb goes off in your brain. Your brain feels like it's swelling inside your cranium. You have a lot of pressure. You'll feel flushed. You'll feel like you have a temperature, but you won't. You won't be able to think straight. You'll feel just a lot of inflammation and dehydration all in your head, and it will go down your central nervous system as well. So neuroinflammation is huge, especially when we're looking at all these people that have brain fog and cognitive decline and can't remember yesterday's lunch and so on. So collagen is, believe it or not, a strong anti-inflammatory. This goes back to like everything I recommend is for a reason. And I've been recommending collagen before this study even came out. And like I said, this is a new study. It only came out at the end of March 2023. May also protect against depression. I would put that towards the anti-inflammatory and gut benefits. Is essential for collagen synthesis. It's part of collagen in our program. Doses of 10 to 20 grams a day. That's of glycine with collagen for us. I think what's doable for most people is 4 scoops a day. So the glycine and the collagen helps with preventing illness and disease, age-related illness and disease, because it helps block the effects of methionine. Methionine has been shown to induce age-related disease, basically make you old before you should be. So methionine comes from animal products, but when you have the glycine to offset that. Now, this is in context as well. Like, we could go deep on this. So I don't want you reading excess methionine from eating animal products without the connective tissues decreases longevity. So without the connective tissues, without the collagen, but also you have to put this in context. Is it deep fried? Is it loads of trans fats? Is it char grilled? Is it crappy meat along with a hot dog? Like, everything's in context. What does your overall diet look like? So don't jump the gun too much on that part. Glycine has neurotransmitter qualities back to our brain health. I get a lot of questions about brain health, and I really just say, like, just do what I tell you. Wash, rinse, repeat. Improves depression. So important. And it's also useful for improving sleep. Well, we spoke about that. Look. I obviously know what this said, because not only did I do this last week, but I've already read all of this. But glycine helps improve sleep quality by helping relaxation at night by being very similar to the neurotransmitter GABA. What is one thing I recommend? It's GABA. So you got GABA, you got tulsi and ginger tea, you got collagen. Most people are knocked out for the night. Now, what I am seeing is a lot of people have excess stress and adrenaline hormones going around. Really, like, there's so much to contend with there. Our lifestyles, things we're taking on too much. The pandemic, of course, was an issue, caused a lot of anxiety in people. There's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses as well. Like, so for some people, they might need a bit more help, but for a lot of people, this is going to be enough of a stack. I wanted to come down to this. Where is it? This is really important. I know Tarina last week, I highlighted this to you when we were speaking, and even Holly. So firstly, blood sugars, and Carolyn, I highlighted this to you on the original group call. Decrease fasting glucose, insulin, triglycerides, and insulin-like growth factor. And even Jessica, I had mentioned this to you. I thought you were watching, but you weren't watching. But hopefully now you're watching. Insulin-like growth factor. Then we have even intermittently restricting methionine leads to benefits like improved glucose homeostasis, reduced obesity, and protection against fatty liver. So important. Holly and Andrea and a few others suppress tumor growth in mice with melanoma. Tracy, important for you. Reduce weight gain and improve bone mineral density. Holly, like, alleviated neuroinflammation. this stuff is just so important, and this research is groundbreaking, and I can share the original study if you want. I'll find it and I'll share. This is not the study. This is kind of like, I don't want to say a summary, but this is not the study, but I can get it for you. So, how do I go back to me? Does anyone know how to go back to me on this? Okay, so with there's another screen I want to share as well. So that pretty much wraps up that, and that collagen kind of brings us 360 back around to bone broth, because bone broth high in collagen. If you're post-surgery, if you're trying to heal, if you're trying to upregulate stem cells, and that includes like for immune system, because your red and white blood cells and immune cells, they're made out of stem cells. Like all of this is super important. So collagen, like I cannot stress, it's such a versatile tool, because even I have a client and she's having issues even with the whey protein isolate. Now I'm going to look at maybe hemp or pumpkin seed protein for her, but collagen is pretty much hypoallergenic for everybody. So it's so versatile that it can be used just to bring up your protein each day. And then, like I said, it's hypoallergenic, but there are like a few exceptions. I've came across 2 or 3 people, kind of like the cilantro. People have polymorphisms where they taste cilantro and it tastes like soap, so they don't like that. I think in all of my years working, I came across 3 people who get a weird taste off collagen, and that is that weird genetic polymorphism as well, but it's not common. So most people do amazing on collagen. Like, I don't want to say great, like I really mean it, amazing on collagen. But we're looking at 4 scoops a day. That doesn't mean you have to do 4 scoops a day. It just means like that kind of is optimal. But some people might just do 2 and they'll still get the amino acids. You'll still get glycine. You'll still get protein. You'll still get benefits. May just not be as fast or as therapeutic, but you still will. And you have to remember as well, you get collagen in your animal products too. So, okay, if there's questions, reach out to me, ask, I'll of course respond. I want to just move on to this one last thing before we wrap up. And I'm going to share this screen. And just because last week I had sent this out to a couple of clients to just drive home the idea of stress's impact on, stress's impact on blood sugars and weight gain. So basically, stress and blood sugar and weight gain is what I wanted to talk about, because a lot of people don't realize that your body can make its own sugar. It can make its own weight. So stress affects on blood sugar and weight gain. Your body can make its own sugar. And I'm going to share this screen. I shared this screen with a couple of clients last week, and it really is just my scribbles, but I'm going to talk you through it before we wrap up here. So, where it's gone? Here it is. And it is just my scribbles, but sometimes my scribbles make a lot of sense. So, okay, you see stress and your blood sugars. So what happens is when you get stressed, and it could be any stress, because this happens to a lot of my clients, that no matter how good they are with their nutrition or maybe their sleep or their exercise, they still struggle to lose weight, or maybe they're gaining weight slowly but surely. Like you wouldn't gain 3 pounds or a ton in a week, but they're really stuck. So I want to drive this home to really help people understand. So you get some sort of stressor. It could be anything. It could be your husband annoying you, your boss, your kids, you've too much on your plate, you're not sleeping well, you're over exercising, you're under eating. So then that stress, whatever it is, it triggers your HPA axis, which is your hypothalamic pituitary axis. So brain, pituitary, and then the axis pretty much means goes through your whole body. That's the easiest way to think about it. Right down to your adrenals. So you get this signal, the HPA axis then triggers the adrenals to make catecholamines. Catecholamines are basically your stress hormones, your cortisol and your adrenaline. So then cortisol, so catecholamines, they make your adrenaline, your cortisol. Cortisol then triggers gluconeogenesis. I just realized you may not know what I meant, but I cut it short because I couldn't fit in the cis at the end there. So either the cortisol is going to trigger gluconeogenesis, so a stress response, and I said, or a drop in blood sugar, because some people go on hypoglycemic, that is going to be a big stress response. That's going to trigger gluconeogenesis. So gluconeogenesis basically means the liver breaks down its own stored glycogen, because your liver stores about 120 grams of sugar or glycogen. It varies from person to person. Bigger people can have bigger livers, like your liver can grow, it can shrink. But on average, it's 120 grams. So your liver then breaks down its stored liver glycogen or sugar, and it converts that to bioavailable sugar, which is glucose, which is then released into your bloodstream. So this increases blood sugar, which then causes the pancreas and the liver to release insulin in response to this increased blood sugar. Insulin's job is to lower blood sugar, specifically unused blood sugar. And what that means is, in the past, when you would have had some sort of big stressor, you would have then ran away from the dinosaur or the tiger or whatever it was. So you used the blood sugar for energy. Nowadays, you might just have a shitty phone call and someone annoys you and stresses you, and then you hang up and your cortisol is elevated and you get this dump of blood sugar, but you're not running away. You're just sitting in the same spot doing your emails or dealing with it. So then you're left with a lot of unused sugar in your bloodstream. Now, insulin is a fat storing hormone. That's part of its job. Insulin does a lot of stuff, but part of its job is fat storing. So as the insulin increases, it tries to then basically put this unused blood sugar somewhere else. And depending on the body type, most people are then going to have to convert this unused blood sugar into triglycerides or cholesterol, and then that's going to need to be stored in fat cells or in your arteries, or some of it might float around your blood, which is where you see high triglycerides. But really, this shows you that constantly being in this fight or flight chronic stress state causes your body to keep making its own sugar for survival and pretty much shuts off fat burning. There's ways we can kind of push things, but it just makes everything harder. And I have wrote at the top there, when you sleep, you're in your aerobic state, which means you burn the greatest percent of body fat. And then I have situation dependent, of course, which basically means if you're doing what I tell you and you're going to bed with low sugar in your bloodstream, you're doing your evening routine, you're pretty much fasted, going to bed, all that sort of stuff. But this really highlights, this is how your body makes its own sugar, which then, if you don't burn that or use it for energy or survival, that sugar then has to get converted into fat to be then stored somewhere, because you just can't have a ton of sugar floating around your bloodstream all the time. That's going to be a problem. So I hope that makes sense. We covered a lot. I think I did this justice compared to last week's. The only thing, and I'll squeeze it in really fast now. There's two things actually. Someone said, is there such a thing as too much collagen? No, there isn't such a thing as too much collagen. Like, chance of you eating half a tub or a tub a day are very slim. In that case, you might get diarrhea and maybe vomiting, but no, in general, there's no such thing as too much collagen. And the second thing was, Tracy had asked if someone had just been battling with diarrhea and vomiting from, I think it was food poisoning, what would my approach be? And my approach really would be, well, I would consider one, if that was the case, your body will be in a state of inflammation, because vomiting, diarrhea is very inflammatory to the tissues it's coming out of. So you want to really follow a low inflammatory diet there: bone broth, apples, berries, collagen. But also when you've had this happen, where you've changed the microbiome or the bacteria profile, you then want to really consider, okay, well, the chances are my bad bacteria is higher right now because of what's just happened. So how do I re-influence that? Well, your modbiotic foods, lots of pickles, lots of vinegar. If you like sauerkraut, go with that. If you like kimchi, all pickles. Just really think bitter, tart, sour foods, and then nutritional yeast, because when you had food poisoning, nausea, diarrhea, antibiotics, surgery, you're really putting yourself at risk of having something worse happen, like a yeast infection or C. diff or something. So here's where nutritional yeast will come in, and that's amazing. I've spoke about that. I think I did a whole video on that a while ago. If you want to know more, ask me about it and I'll point you in the right direction. But nutritional yeast, you can pretty much get it and sprinkle it on anything. You can get it, Solar Raw do a good one with their kale chips, have nutritional yeast on them. You can get a Saccharomyces boulardii supplement, the same idea there. But really, at the end of the day, if something like this does happen and you're trying to recover your bowels from diarrhea and vomiting, bitter, tart, sour foods, and then think of like these healing proteins, these healing amino acids. So your collagen, bone broth, protein shakes, good quality meats. Like really, that is key for most people. Like that is key. Sometimes I think people don't want to hear it because it's like, oh, she's just recommending clean eating again. But no, these specific foods do specific things. Amino acids, protein, so important for your immune system, so important for the bacteria, the microbiome, the gut healing, it is all important. It all makes a difference. And as I always say, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat. It takes time. It's not easy to be healthy and lose weight and keep it off forever. It takes time, takes persistence, takes discipline, talking to yourself. Sometimes you have to be hard on yourself. Like, just do it, Shmaine. If you want these goals, you have to do it. Stop being a baby. Like, sometimes you do have to be really hard on yourself. And people don't like to hear that. But I've always said, like, being mollycoddling people and being fluffy with people has gotten us nowhere. We're sicker than ever. And I feel like I've been saying that every year for the last 15 years, and we just keep getting sicker. No more being too soft on yourself. Sometimes you have to say, look, the odds are kind of stacked against me, but I can get results if I show up every day and I have faith and trust the process. Understand you cannot keep showing up every day and putting in your full efforts and not eventually see results. Like even if you don't see it externally on the scales or in the mirror, internally, you are 100,000,000% making big incremental changes. So I hope this was helpful. I hope it saves. If there's any questions, reach out to me, because on the actual live call, people were asking questions. Unfortunately, now people can't. But I think I did it justice. I think I've just covered a lot there. I think I've pretty much covered everything that I covered last week in the group call. So let me know. Let me know if you think I missed anything, because many of you did watch it last week, or if you have questions. And of course, I'm always happy to answer. Even when I sound like I'm irritable, I'm not irritable. Maybe I am, but I also have a husband and kids and a house to take care of and a business to run and my private clients and interviews and podcasts. So I'm always happy to answer. I just get tired sometimes, just like all of us. But this is part of the journey. Okay, everyone, be good. Bye.